Welcome back to the Dreaming and Doing podcast. I am here today with Julie Harris, who is an accountant, CEO of GreenOak Accounting, and author of Profit First for Therapists. I know that a lot of entrepreneurs are familiar with the Profit First book in general, and Julie has come out with this new book that is specific to therapists. So I'm super excited to have her here. I've known Julie for a little while now. So I'm really looking forward to hearing about our conversation around money and our dreams. So welcome, Julie.
Hi, Melissa. Good to see you. And I'm excited. I'm always excited to chat about money, even though that can be a slightly stressful topic for some, but we're going to talk about it in a very low pressure way.
Yes. Well, I'm so excited to be talking about this because one, I think one of the things that I see is money is something that can interfere with people pursuing their dreams, right? It's the
Absolutely.
reason, well, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to sign up for this. I don't have the money right now. We've probably either all said that or heard someone say that money was a reason for not pursuing their dreams. And yet, money is also sometimes necessary to pursue our dreams. So, I'm going to be super curious to hear what you have to say. But before we get started, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about your work with therapists around money, because I know that as a profession, there are some trends and patterns that you might see around money stuff that counselors have.
Yeah. I mean, in all the years I've been an accountant, um, I had never met an industry that's quite like mental health in the sense that I usually don't have to convince clients that they should make a profit in their business. But when it comes to therapists, that is usually part of our conversation. Or when it's not, in the rare cases that it's not, it's because that practice owner or clinician has done their own work around their money mindset and they've moved beyond that. But like they did have that at some point. Because you talk to a construction business owner, a car dealership owner, like, yeah, obviously I'm going to make money in this business. But when you talk to a therapist, like, oh, well, I feel guilty. How could I? I need to help people. And like, but yeah, those things are all true. And you also need to make a living. Like you need to have a roof over your head and food to eat on the table, or you're not going to show up as the best clinician you can be. Like those can coexist together.
Yes. So making money isn't bad and you don't have to feel guilty about it.
Seriously, no, exactly. I think every practice should be profitable. Every business should be profitable, and that should always be the goal, right? Every business that is not a nonprofit, but even a nonprofit has to have income that is higher than expenses. Like that's just how it works, or else the business ceases to exist. That's also the same for a household. If you spend more than you make, at some point the household is going to be a significant financial distress, and something's got to give. So across the line, like these are lessons that apply to really everyone in every situation. If you spend less than you make and you have a profit, then you're good to go.
Yes. And I know that that's part of, what your book is about, right? Thinking about profit in your business. Talk with us maybe a little bit about your book, Profit First for Therapists, and how maybe it's a little bit different from the initial Profit First book.
Yeah, so Profit First is first and foremost a cash flow management system. The original book is written by Mike Michalowicz. And has truly a cult following. I wrote Profit First for Therapists that's specifically for therapists. So I worked with Mike and Mike's team, but my team and I had already adapted the cash flow system to therapists in private practice. And there are just a couple of things that are a little bit different than any old business out there. And we were seeing clients struggle often enough with the implementation that I knew they needed more of a detailed roadmap specifically for therapists. So really the concept in Profit First is that instead of looking at the traditional accounting equation, which is income minus expenses equals profit, turning that equation upside down, where your income minus your profit equals your expenses. So we're building in profit from the very beginning and saying this is going to be a profitable endeavor. And that means we have less left for expenses. But when you do that, it's kind of like putting yourself on a budget and having your savings come directly out of your paycheck. you have less money left, and that means you are going to automatically spend less and get more creative because you know what you have left, right? So it's kind of like doing that. We're automating the savings piece and saying, this is what we have left to run the business. So let's use that instead of considering the whole pie, the whole 100% of the income as available to us. We're going to consider, for example, 99% or 95%. This is what's available to us. So how do we make that work? And that has been incredibly successful for, I think, millions of businesses at this point to make sure that they are building a profit from the very beginning or from whatever point they are at right now.
Right. There are a lot of people who I've heard say, I'm not even getting paid. I'm paying people on my
Mm-hmm.
team and I'm not even getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really common narrative in a small business, and in many service-based businesses, right, where you don't have a lot of infrastructure. So I'm talking a therapist, a marketing agency, where it's a service-based business. It really shouldn't be that way. You should be able to make money almost from the very beginning, right after your initial investment. There should be a way to make money if you're pricing your services correctly, if your expenses are in line and reasonable based on the size of your business. You really should be able to make money almost immediately. Now, this is not going to apply if you need a manufacturing plant, and a lot of capital assets, or even if you're opening a restaurant where you need a physical space, you need to build it out, you need tables and chairs and kitchen equipment, right? That's not going to apply here. But in a service business where you as the owner of the business can just go, like, put up a website, make an initial investment in that way, right? And maybe some networking events, a little bit computer equipment, but almost right away you're able to go out there and say, I'm going to charge this client $150 per hour, and there's got to be profit in that hour.
Yes, I love that right from the beginning.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm not a believer that you should wait 2 years to pay yourself. I think that's unrealistic for most businesses, especially when you are growing at the speed of cash and starting the business with your own funds. You can and should go make money really quickly because it's possible.
Yeah. So as we're thinking about dreaming and doing, how can money baggage get in the way of someone's dreams?
There's a lot of situations where someone's narrative from their past will affect what they're currently doing. For example, I had always told myself that I would never be a business owner because my narrative from childhood was my mother was a serial entrepreneur and she loved to start a business, but was not that good or she loved to start the business. She was not that good at running a business and keeping it sustainable and profitable long term. So as a child, I saw that side. My mom's always struggling over here, always starting over, and that seems really hard. And then I would see my dad, who worked for the same company for 25 years, and that was our stability, right? He always paid child support, and so we always had, food on the table, but that felt way more stable. So I had always told myself, I will never be a business owner because that's way more risky. And the truth is, somehow I became a business owner myself, and not because there's no risk, but really as an adult looking in, realizing there's risk in everything that we do. Just because you work for a large company, you could still face a layoff or be let go or something happen that changes the industry. And really, if you want to be able to take control of your own destiny, business ownership can be a really good path for a lot of people. And so my personal scenario was I was a mom of three young kids when I started my business, and we just needed more money in the household. I had been freelancing, but it wasn't quite enough. So I needed to just get more serious about it. And my husband was commuting as a business owner to a client site 5 days a week. He was in the car 3 hours per day. And so with three young kids, I needed to have the flexibility to go pick up someone if the school nurse called, or to manage the teacher work days and the dentist appointments and all those things. And accounting was not exactly a flexible workplace back then. It is more so now, but you had to just go and be in the office 60 hours a week. And I knew that just could not work for my family. So it kind of came out of necessity. But for years I had told myself, I could not possibly do this. And then I went and did it. So I think my money narrative was playing against me, where I probably could have done that a lot earlier and saved myself some time, but like, here we are.
Yeah, and life is funny, right? Like, I'm sitting here listening to how you were like, "I'm never gonna do that. That's never gonna be my story, never gonna be my experience." And then life is like, "Ta-da, guess
Just
what?"
kidding. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm wondering, since you are helping people with money all the time in your business, what kind of money baggage do you see other entrepreneurs experiencing?
Yeah, there's a couple of different scenarios that I see play out often. One is money hoarding. So someone starts to do well, they will just pile up the cash and never be willing to take any of it home or spend it. So that sometimes does happen. And I have been guilty of that at some point where you're just afraid that it's all going to go away. And so you're just trying to hold on to it really tight. Sometimes that comes at the expense of not reinvesting properly in the business or not paying yourself properly, even though your business maybe has grown and is successful. You're still living kind of your life of poverty because you feel like you need to just in case, right? Or living the way you did when you had a brand new startup and you had to live really, really lean, and you're not allowing yourself to do things like go on a vacation or do something nice for yourself. So that's kind of one scenario that I see often. And the other that's pretty common is kind of where money is going out as fast as it's coming in, where the money's coming in, and all of a sudden someone went from maybe making $5,000 a month in their earlier days to now they're making $150,000 a month in their business, but they have figured out a way to spend every last penny of that, where they're just kind of almost afraid to keep any of it. And like, oh no, I need to do this, or I need to invest in that. And like, it's just going out because there's this fear of, well, and Melissa, you as a counselor are way more qualified at explaining the why. But I suspect it's something like they feel guilty about making a lot more money in their life, but also like it's going to change them as well. Like, who will I be if I am someone who does really well? And maybe the fear of what that might look like. What do you think?
Yeah, I love that. Um, so many things that I'm thinking about going through my mind as you're talking about that. Some things that I hear people talk about. I don't, a lot of counselors, some of these conversations I don't actually hear happening, but in spaces like on podcasts where
Hmm.
people are having those conversations, I hear people talk about it feels weird to maybe make more money than my family of origin, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Will having money make me different than my family? Will my family view me as different? So that's one of the things that I have sometimes heard people say.
Yeah. And I think part of it too is I do think it goes back often to guilt, but just having a hard time becoming the person your business needs you to be. So becoming someone who saves and plans ahead and has an emergency fund. Like, if that's not a life that you've ever been able to live, it does require a change in habits
Hmm.
to a certain extent, right? To say like, oh, I now have not just myself and my immediate family. I have 5 team members, 20 team members that I'm responsible for. And I need to become this more responsible person and have an emergency fund in the business. Like that requires someone to evolve. And that's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah. And the other thing that popped into my head is also if I make more money and if it becomes known that I make more money, whether known not because someone's talking about it, but because of a purchase. You've maybe
Yeah.
bought a brand new car or you've bought a new home or something. Or maybe you start showing up differently or taking vacations. What will people think? What labels might
Hmm.
people use to me? Right?
So true. So true.
Right?
Of like, or what will my employees think? I
Yes.
think that one can show up really, really easily. What will the team think? Will they think I'm taking all of their money and just getting rich over here
Yep.
when and ask me for a raise, right? There's all of this like emotional turmoil that can come up from that.
Absolutely. I'm thinking about that as well. What will people think? Right? I sometimes feel like I need people to know that I'm working really hard, right? Like
Yes.
I'm not just sitting back here, twiddling my thumbs. I'm still working hard. And so I know that that can come up.